Hello. Cécile Cherrier. So I worked on the contextual note on forced displacement. I'm not going to present the whole the content of the note today. I just wanted to focus on a few key messages. So just in short, the new normal is protracted displacement. So now the average duration of displacement is 17 years. So clearly, displaced people cannot wait for the end of displacement to get a life. It represents 1% of humankind. This is the highest caseload ever. So this is really just the new normal. So in that context, the EU approach now is clearly, it's been articulated in 2016 in the communication on forced displacement, and it's clearly a development-oriented approach to refugees, IDPs, and their hosts. So clearly looking at both displaced people and host communities, and aim to foster resilience and self-reliance. So this is the context of this note. And in this communication, social protection is clearly stated as one cornerstone of this approach. So we need social protection to be able to provide regular assistance support to those communities. So again, I just wanted to discuss 5 key messages. So the first one is, so the note is really was written primarily for people in delegations, people in the field, so in ECHO offices and delegations. So clearly just to flag that before just focusing on how to link humanitarian assistance and social protection, just we need to step back and look at the broader picture. So really look at, okay, in terms of joint humanitarian development, possibly peace nexus, what does it mean in terms of, so to do a joint analysis and also to do joint programming. And I think it's really important to have this just overall exercise first before saying, oh, I do an emergency cash transfer, therefore I can link it to the national cash transfer system. So it's important to have this first step to just to make sure that we better understand the context of the, so maybe in the interest of time, I can just go through each message. We do the joint vulnerability assessment, so looking again at displaced and host communities together, and also to systematically include the conflict and protection analysis, and really to keep people's capacities and needs at the center. So again, not to start with programs, how can I link the two, but really to keep, okay, what does it mean for people, what do they need? And maybe most importantly, something we often forget is what are their capacities, what can we build on? They had a life before displacement, so we need to remember that. And be a principled opportunist with a long-term perspective. So it's basically to be to have this long-term view and to know that the road will be long, but to be opportunistic. To just, if it's just starting with one little bit of the system, and to start with this tiny little aspect of the food security program, whatever, let's start with it and then let's build from there. And to really clarify the roles and responsibilities. So again, this is really looking at how the EU functions, but between diplomacy, development, humanitarian, really to clarify the roles and responsibilities. So once you have that, you've clarified, like you have your analysis of the situation, you get a sense of how long you expect the displacement to last, who's affected, what are the conflict analysis, then you can look at how to possibly work with the national social protection system. And a strong message here is really to consider this in all contexts. So not just not to say, okay, in this context there's no social protection system, therefore I just don't look at it. In all contexts, and Georgia mentioned it, you can do something, just even consider maybe there's something you can do under the humanitarian assistance that will just be an example you will be able to build on to build the national system. So there's always something to do. And also, because displacement is protracted, after a few years, the objective of the humanitarian assistance and the objective of the social protection people, it just becomes similar, because you're responding to regular needs. So that's why in all contexts, there's a value in looking at this link. So there's a value in supporting a phased transition from humanitarian to development, so really clearly, ideally stating from the beginnings that humanitarian assistance in those contexts is just temporarily. It will be phased out and handed over to development actors. And again, to harmonize the level of support. So really the key message is equal vulnerability requires equal support. So it might make sense at the beginning to provide larger transfer values to displaced people, but slowly, as needs just align with host communities who are also in need, there's the need for harmonization. When we say linking with the national system, the key challenge we're facing is how to convince national government to just enroll displaced people in their system when they're already struggling with their national population. So there are a few positive experiences, I would say, so not mainly in Uganda and Jordan, where really the focus is on building self-reliance and the economic contribution of displaced people. So before, we started by saying, okay, with cash transfers increasingly used in humanitarian assistance, there's really a way to link it to social protection. So often we tend to just focus on social assistance and cash transfers. But really in that case, in the case of forced displacement, we need to really focus on how to build self-reliance. So how to advocate for access to work, the right to work, access to decent work. And that can be through advocating, leveraging the power of just private actors, or if not possible, that can be through direct activities. But again, so I was mentioning Jordan is where there's been this compact in special economic zones where actually so displaced people, refugees are able to work and contribute to the economy of the national economy. So again, cash-based assistance, again, has a role when possible to build self-reliance, and the importance also of establishing linkages with livelihoods approach, so under the cash plus approach. The second aspect, so it's building resilience, it's ensuring access, building self-reliance, ensuring access to essential goods and services. And here under social protection, again, there are other aspects than cash transfers or assistance. It's just the identity documentation can make a big change. The demand side barriers can be lifted with social assistance, clearly. And in all those aspects, it's interesting to consider how to link with the national system from the start. So often it comes too late. It's a bit like livelihoods. It comes too late when we realize that, okay, displacement is protracted. Here also we need to look at this from the beginning. And Georgia mentioned it, but really it's to focus on reliable delivery. So to really ring-fence delivery and not search for the ideal design, just what works. Then in the way we implement all programs, we need to have in mind, to keep in mind the urge to foster social cohesion. And there are simple ways to do this. I mean, simple ways, just it can be just small tricks in the program just to make sure that, for instance, nationals and refugees just go to the same center to apply for assistance. It can be that we use the same joint vulnerability assessment. It can be joint activities, for instance, nutritional education, this type of things. So they are just small elements we can bring in the program to make sure that it's fosters social cohesion.
It's 5 minutes.
Yeah. So I'm done with my 5 messages. I just wanted to flag that all this work is ongoing, and every week we learn more. So I just invite you to join both community health practice or one of them. We'll be posting new research on those communities. That's it.
Thank you very much. Cécile, does the audience have any questions? We'll go in order of hands going up. Jürgen.
My question relates to the first message that you said you have to start with joint analysis. And the question here relates to the term, what is joint? So at what time, with this composition in relation to what we heard in the note on stakeholders, how many of them you need to consider that it's enough joint? And what is if the analysis comes to not a joint outcome of the analysis? So it looks nice, but it seems that even the first step can be very complex.
Good. Okay. Second question. Microphone. Yes, there.
Thank you for raising the issue of the identity documents, because as UNHCR we have some experience with integration of cash programs into national social safety nets, and everything starts or falls with the recognition of identity documents, and also with the advocacy with the government to include non-nationals into their legal frameworks, their policy frameworks, and their administrative frameworks. So for those interested, we have a document you can find at the exit which outlines some of our key learnings that we had from integration of cash programs throughout. But advocacy with governments and identity documents is one of the key considerations.
Thanks. Alexandra Juster from UNICEF.
Thank you. Cécile, I appreciated the point that you had about right at the beginning of the length of displacement and this importance of emphasizing self-reliance and essentially access to employment. Funny thing for UNICEF to be talking about, a little further from what we directly work on, but really, really struck me when I went to Jordan. And I was happy to see where the developments have gone from what you said, though I can see it's still in economic zones. And the point I wanted to make and the question I wanted to ask is about politics in dealing with these groups. I mean, of course, there's including in the social protection system, but also all the different partners around in Jordan were advocating with the government to allow, and in fact trying to twist the government's arm to some extent to allow the refugees to work. And even though the evidence is all there that it actually helps increase economic activity, for the government politically it was still very difficult to do, and I guess that's why it's in certain economic zones. I'm wondering how you've dealt with that in the guidance, and whether there is any guidance on dealing with the political side of this very important issue.
This will be, I think we have one more question then, if that's it. Yes.
Okay, I'm not sure that's on. Oh, yes, it is. I guess mine's more of a reflection than something I expect you to answer, but it follows on a bit from what Jürgen's just said about joint exercises. And I really, really appreciated the point that you made at the beginning about focusing on this as a strategic thing and not an instrumental thing. I think that's really important, and we should bring that out a bit more. The thing that worries me about joint exercises is I feel a bit like we're sitting here pretending that everybody who works on social protection agrees with each other. And I frequently find myself, as someone who's outside of donor agencies, practically having to pull representatives of agencies apart because they just are poking at each other and taking chunks out of each other. So in social protection, it's usually the scrap about whether we should be doing some sort of poverty targeting or whether we should be doing categorical. And I think there's a bit of a danger at the moment that we're pretending that we all get on all the time and are completely aligned. In social protection, we're not. And I guess it's probably the same for humanitarian actors, that you don't all agree with each other all the time. And I just wonder whether we need to think about having that conversation a little bit more. Otherwise, doing the things you said around being strategic and not instrumental, they won't happen. We resort to the instrumental thing because we're busy trying to get one over on each other and get the program that we want agreed by government before it agrees the program of another donor, and so on.
Thank you for that reflection, and I know that in various countries, and I'm thinking here of Lebanon, for example, where there is a social safety net forum which brings together donors and partners to come up with a common approach. But yes, it is there will always be differences between actors, regardless. Would you like to answer those questions? And then after this, we will not have a fishbowl. We will proceed straight to the final item on the agenda. If that's looking at the time, it's been such a interesting discussion, but it has taken its toll on the time.
Joint. Okay, I agree. When I wrote the note again, the audience in mind was people in delegation and ECHO offices. So the thinking is, even if it's only the two of you, like the person in delegation, the person in ECHO, talking to each other, just make sure you start with this, just having a joint agreement on the situation. And the idea is that then slowly just build momentum. I wouldn't say that wait until you have this joint analysis approved by everybody to get started. I mean, earlier we're discussing Yemen, right? Yeah, it would be nice to have a nice donor coordination in Yemen, just starting with donor, and then for the donors to agree with other stakeholders. We're far from there. So I would say 2 is the beginning. The politics of working with refugees. This is the elephant in the room. I have no answer. So basically in the note we said, just make this economic case. We have the case of Uganda. We have evidence that the economic impact is good. We have the case of Jordan. Yes, Massimo has the answer.
financing and diplomacy. And the diplomacy was missing. So I would say this kind of foreign expert should probably talk to our decision makers, because they are the ones negotiating with the ministries of finance, social welfare. That is probably an area in which within our own organizations we need to learn. And it's linking to what Rachel said before, it's not only we needed to educate the others outside, we needed to learn from our own mistakes of the past.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, if that's
No,
it.
what?
No further comment. I think I will say thank you very much, and we'll now turn to Jürgen to close this afternoon's session. Thank you.
Yeah, there's not so much to say after that intensive afternoon. Only, first of all, sorry that we have taken too much time for just presenting. We should have skipped the second session on the guidance package because it became so interesting thereafter. But you see the mistakes often thereafter. We are here with this event at the end of a 3 years process in somehow, because the initiative will cease to exist, at least in the format that it has been working, or we have been working together over the last 3 years. But we are at the same time at the start of a next phase, but not a phase within, but a phase with other partners. And therefore, it's good, we are in a very good composition here. We have people have been working with us, being part of the team throughout that process. We are here, you contributed that we were able to deliver everything that we promised until now. We have not yet delivered to you the notes. This will take another 1, 2, or maximum 3 weeks. Not yet, weeks, including the video. But they will come, and I'm also very happy about having at least UNICEF and ILO here in the room, because we are currently in discussion of handing over this guidance package, this EU guidance package, as part of the new program on social protection and public finance management, and the component of shock responsive social protection to you. And we know that we are all working with the same experts. So those experts that have contributed to this EU guidance package are contributing to strategy papers of all other institutions. So we remain within the same group. As you said, we are always talking to each other and seldom to others that we promise or that we intend to do. I'd like to thank Nadia for the moderation of the day, and a very big thanks at the end of that phase is to Marie Asmus, who has been the project manager of the last phase, and who was really responsible and the person, the energy behind that everything was produced in time. A big thank you to you. What you can expect from the Commission is, apart from that it will come, that we will send to you the additional notes, probably in a supplementary online format to the reference document. So it will not be a printed version, it will take too long time. But we are already working on an e-learning journey with DEVCO Academy. It's scheduled to be released in September. This is a new MKS phase, and we will see whether in the future phase we can have the one or other supporting activities to the next activities, which are definitely should be on the focus on implementation. So with this, thank you very much. A very nice networking and work for the UNICEF. You have a lot of work here in front of you here in Brussels, and we see in the one or other occasion. Have a nice evening.